What's going on, bottom line viewers, NFL fans, NFL fanatics? It's Mitch here of the Bottom Line View, here to react live to NFL free agency day 3, giving you my thoughts on the latest news from day 3 across the NFL. Every single signing, every single one. Well, at least the players that signed on new teams. And if you want to ask me about re-signings as well, I will give you my insight. But that's exactly why I'm here. It's an open Q&A about free agency. Who's going to go where? Who's going to sign here? What do you think of this signing? What do you think of this potential trade? It's been great so far. Awesome free agency. A lot of intriguing, interesting moves. And I'm here to discuss the latest every single night for the foreseeable future. Let's begin. What's going on, everybody? Make sure that you Gronk spike the like button. Also, I had an idea. So I'm going to ask you guys, I had an idea. The idea is, would you guys like a massive video, maybe 1 or 2 videos, where it's just all cut-ups of my reactions to every signing, and I could put it team by team by team by team? Let me know if you guys would like that, if you think that would be awesome, because I'm willing to do that if everybody wants it. But basically, it would be all the cut-ups of my reaction for every single player to every single team that I discuss, which is pretty much every signing across the board. So, let's say hello to the people before we get to the signings. Yes, we're going to talk about Juju. And if you guys just want to know, I've become a much better TikTok dancer in the last 5 hours since he was signed. I've been practicing in the mirror, so I'm ready to go. What's up, Sing? How you doing? What's up, Cameron? How you doing? Says Panthers are back. He also says Miles Sanders and Hayden Hurst. Yeah, we'll get to the Panthers for sure. Caesar is back in the chat. We love to see it. Graham is in the chat. Dante King is in the chat. Dougie is in the chat. FSE is in the chat. He says, hey, Mitch, what do you think about the Jets in 2023 with Aaron Rodgers? Okay, we could start there. Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. It's not confirmed yet. I know that everyone thinks it's confirmed. I watched the entire interview. Aaron Rodgers on Pat McAfee. There was a ton of people in that live stream. And it's pretty much confirmed. Now, it hasn't happened yet, but it's pretty much confirmed in Aaron Rodgers' words that he plans on playing for the New York Jets in 2023. And I think they can be a very good team. To put it brief, I feel like Aaron Rodgers is going to upgrade that offense immensely. He already has a relationship with the play caller, the offensive coordinator, Hackett, who was not the play caller in Green Bay, but he was the quarterback coach. So it's not strictly Matt LaFleur to Aaron Rodgers, but there's a very good relationship there already. They know each other's language. They know their ideas, how they feel about the game. So that's huge, right? That's first and foremost. After that, you've got Garrett Wilson, who's an ascending young wide receiver. You signed Allen Lazard for that comfort, right? And then on top of that, you got Elijah Moore, who's pretty good, maybe a little overrated, but he's been pretty good in his career. You've got solid tight end play from Ty Conklin and company. CJ Uzomah, I believe, is still on the roster. And then offensive line-wise, pretty good as long as they can be healthy. I think ensuring it with some backups that can play that are veterans will be important. The running game is solid. Breece Hall and Michael Carter are there. I wouldn't be shocked if they added another running back. So offensively, they've got the makings of a solid running game, a better passing game for sure, and potentially explosive passing game. And then defensively, we know they are phenomenal. They are elite. Probably top 5 in the NFL. The one question I have about them is coaching. I have uncertainty when it comes to Hackett. Just where he's been and what he's been able to do as an OC. Kind of lacks originality and lacks flavor and creativity. And then Robert Saleh is not my favorite head coach. I would say he's the weakest coach in that division. So coaching is the thing that worries me, but talent is immense. So that's my thoughts on Aaron Rodgers right now. We'll get into it more when Aaron Rodgers officially gets there, but Edward says, Mitch, sup? What's going on, man? What's up, Nicholas Gill? What's up, Ladarius? Caesar says, Corvette. What's going on, Caesar? What else? Gary is in the chat. Hugo says, Carolina is having a phenomenal offseason, Mitch. So far, while I am not the biggest fan of the first overall pick trade, I do think they gave up maybe a tad too much for my taste. It's bold. I like it. And they've had some good signings. We'll talk about those. Mike says Niners added Hargrave in talks with Slay. Yeah, Slay could be going in the Niners. That would really be huge. Bengals are going 5-12, says Aqua. What's going on, man? Hopefully you're doing okay. The Bengals have not had the best offseason, but they'll rebound. I'm sure of it. What's going on, Miss Harley? How you doing? Nice to see you again. Okay, what do we want to talk about first? $25 million over 4 years. Let's talk about the Carolina Panthers. So let's just put that Hayden Hurst, Miles Sanders combo together. So Miles Sanders is 4 years, $25 million. That just was reported by Adam Schefter. So there we go. Let's begin. The Carolina Panthers are adding some dynamic playmakers to their offense for potentially their first overall pick quarterback. Now, we don't know who the quarterback is going to be, but we do know who will be in the backfield, and we do know who will be next to the offensive line at the tight end position. Let's begin with the first signing of the day from Carolina. Keep pounding. It's Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst, who I felt was a super underrated pickup by the Cincinnati Bengals last year. He is a dynamic athlete at the tight end position. Really good after the catch. His ability to break tackles, find room in open space, take screen passes for more yardage than he should. Hayden Hurst is a good athlete that also is a well-rounded player at the position. There's a reason that Baltimore drafted him in the first round when he was coming out. That's because he was a good athlete, but also was a good blocker. That's why Baltimore drafted him. Now, he didn't really work out in Baltimore. I think he was at his best last year in Cincinnati. He's not an upper echelon tight end. I'd probably call him a top 20, top 15 player at the position all around, but I do feel like he is a very nice complementary option to an offense because of that ability as an athlete in space, because of that ability to play on all downs in all situations, in all personnel packages, to be a threat versus linebackers due to his quickness and his speed, and to also be able to hold up in the running game. So Hayden Hurst is, I want to say, a little bit older than you would think because he was drafted at an older age. I'm going to look into that right now. Hayden Hurst signed an official 3-year, $21.75 million deal with 13 guaranteed. This hasn't been a super exciting market for the tight end position. This year, Dalton Schultz has not signed yet, who is the supposed number one tight end on the market. Mike Gesicki, my favorite move tight end on the market, has not been signed yet either. Last year, Hayden Hurst played in 13 games. He played in 13 the season before that as well. He's played 2 full 16-game seasons in 2019 and 2020. Last year, he had 414 yards. His first season in Atlanta, he had the most yards and catches of his career, 56 catches for 571 yards. Also his most touchdowns with 6. That was along with Matt Ryan and Atlanta in 2020. Last year at 29 years old, see, he is older because he was drafted at 25 in 2018. He had 52 catches for 414 yards in only 13 games, though. So he probably would have surpassed his yardage total, probably flirting with 600-ish yards in a full season. So he's been an ascending player for the most part, but I would say that he is a complementary piece This does seem to be another contract, though, from Carolina that does seem to be maybe a little bit too rich. They did give Shy Tuttle, I feel like, a little bit too much money. They've been spending a lot of money. I don't think they have problems with that due to the fact that they're going to have a rookie contract at quarterback, so that's going to allow them a lot of leverage elsewhere to build the rest of their team. So this is where you want to maybe overpay for the guys that you really want. So I understand that, but it has seemed that maybe Carolina has been paying a little bit more than I would have thought these players would have gotten. And that continues with the running back that they picked up. His name is Miles Sanders. He's signing a 4-year, $25 million contract. Maybe I'm just alone in this department, but I'm not the biggest Miles Sanders fan. I was a pretty big Miles Sanders fan when he came out in the draft. I liked him coming out of Penn State. I think he is explosive. When he sees that opening, he's got pretty good vision. He can explode through the hole and create big gains. And that is probably what Frank Reich and company, Deuce Staley, who was in Philadelphia with Miles Sanders, really liked, because he can be one of those rare running backs. There's not a lot of them in the NFL that can actually take what should be for a lot of guys a 10 to 12 yard carry and create a 30, 40 yard carry due to his speed once he hits the second level. That's his greatest asset. The other thing with him is he's still only 25 years old. So that's another huge bonus. He's coming off his best year as a rusher, though, with 1,200 plus yards. He was given 259 rushes, over 200 rushes for the first time in his career, and he produced big time numbers. So that's a huge positive if you're a Panthers fan. 1,269 yards, that is for 4.9 yards per carry, which is still very efficient for that amount of carries. In seasons past, he's been efficient. 4.6 as a rookie, and then he goes above 5 in 2020 and 2021 with 5.3, 5.5. So he's been efficient his whole career. It was a matter more of touches. I think what he did for himself this year is kind of prove that he can be a workhorse, because that's what he was this year for the Eagles. 259 carries is rare for a running back in today's NFL, and he produced 74.6 yards per game on the ground. He produced 15.2 attempts per game. The one area where he's not great, he's not the best receiver. He actually was a better receiver earlier in his career, so maybe there's some untapped potential there. Maybe Frank Reich can use him kind of like Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis, where he's not a super elaborate route runner, but he has more to his game as a receiver than the Eagles gave him credit for, because he did catch 50 catches, 509 yards for 3 touchdowns, 10.2 yards per reception as a rookie. But lately, he's trended downward as a receiver. 28 catches, 26, and then 20 this past year for only 78 yards. So he wasn't even a very effective receiver. So that's where I'm not sure I would have been the one to sign him, because there's a lot of questions about one major aspect of a running back's game, which is being a receiver. If I'm paying a running back in today's NFL, he needs to be able to be a 3-down player, and he needs to be able to be somebody that I can rely on in pass protection, as a pass receiver, and a running back. That's the only guys that I'm really paying. Those are the McCaffreys of the world, right? Also, staying healthy is very important. And Miles Sanders this past year had the most games played of his career, 15. The rest of the years, 12, 11, 11. So he is going to miss a couple games at least every season. That's his track record. When a player tells you who he is, that's what he is. But I do think Miles Sanders was one of the better running backs on the market. It was him. It was David Montgomery. There was a couple other guys that came to mind. I'm not sure how much of an upgrade this is, though, because I love Dante Foreman. I think as a pure power runner, Foreman is a better player. These are much different running backs. Sanders is a more electric player. Sanders is a guy that has more burst in open space. He's better. Foreman is more of a power running back. So they're much different players. I do wonder what Foreman's going to get on the market. You would expect him to sign probably soon. But maybe in this new system with Frank Reich, he wasn't exactly the best fit, and Miles Sanders was a much better fit because of what I just said. In zone running blocking schemes, Sanders was probably the best running back on the market, which is what got him this contract. So I could see the Panthers using Sanders as a first, second down rushing option, as the ball carrier, the Jonathan Taylor. And then I could see Hubbard being the Nyheim Hines in this offense as well. So just trying to put that into context. But those are the two signings for the Carolina Panthers. I think they're both big-time additions to an offense that really needed some electricity and some athletes and some playmaking post DJ Moore. Those are my thoughts on the Carolina Panthers moves, guys. If you haven't already, make sure you do Gronk spike the like button. Let's get back to the chat and say some hellos. Aqua says Hurst is like 29 because he played baseball in college. He was a Pittsburgh Pirate, but sucked, so he went back to college for football. I didn't even know that. Thank you for that information. Daniel Barry Sports Highlights is in the chat. What's up, Daniel? Gary says, BLV, what do you think of the Chiefs free agency signings? We'll get to those. Caesar says, by the way, holy freeze. Did the Cowboys get Stephon Gilmore? Yes, they did, and I made a video about it, bro. Sean says, are the Pats going to be the worst in their division? Maybe, maybe not. Nick agrees with me that it's maybe too much money for Sanders. Miss Harley says, updates on the Pats. Yes, we're going to get to that. I want to keep you Pats fans around for a little bit longer. You guys might dip on me, so I feel insecure. So if you haven't Gronk spiked the like button, Gronk spiked the like button. Okay, so we got the Panthers out of the way. Next up, the Chiefs. Did the Chiefs sign anyone today? Somebody asked about the Chiefs. I think it was Gary. Did the Chiefs sign anyone today? I don't see anything on my list here. Let me know if they signed anyone today. I don't think so. Oh, Patriots just signed a player. Okay, let's do the Patriots news, guys. Breaking news. The New England Patriots have signed a running back to replace Damian Harris and backup Ramondre Stevenson. His name is James Robinson. Robinson signs a 2-year deal worth up to $8 million with your New England Patriots. So after signing Juju Smith-Schuster, which we're going to get to, the Patriots have been even more active on the offensive front. And I view this signing as a veteran, all-around running back who can back up Ramondre Stevenson and give you someone a little similar to Stevenson in some ways, but different in other ways. Actually kind of similar to Damian Harris, but the one thing I think James Robinson gives you over Damian Harris is his receiving capabilities that he's proven as a lead ball carrier throughout his career, producing 49 catches in his rookie season with Jacksonville, 31 in his second season. Last year was his third year coming off of significant injury. He played for two teams, Jacksonville and the Jets. So the Patriots had a good look at him, perhaps with the Jets. He might not be the same player he was as a rookie, though. There is questions about that due to his injury, but he's still really young. I think he's only 25, maybe 24 years old. He's 24 as of now. He turns 25 in August. So there's a lot of time for him to bounce back from those injuries, but he is a former 240 carry, 1,000-yard running back for 7 touchdowns and 49 catches in his rookie year. He was a bell cow back for Jacksonville. So he's proven that he can be a bell cow back on another team. He will probably not be asked to be that with the New England Patriots, at least if Stevenson is in the backfield. When Stevenson does go down with an injury, which is undoubtedly going to happen for a game or two throughout a season, he can step in and carry the load for the Patriots, which is exciting because I think even with Damian Harris, he wasn't a guy that could carry the load. He wasn't a 3-down running back. He was a good ball carrier, but he wasn't a guy that could also play on 3rd down, could also pass protect, could also run routes out of the backfield, could also be effective in the screen game. That's the area where Damian Harris was lacking. James Robinson can do all of those things that Stevenson can do. He's not as electric, he's not as good, but he can do it. So that is good. And I think when you view a guy like David Montgomery, right, and James Robinson, I think I would say they're similar players. James Robinson went for significantly less. They're also similar age, right? I think they're both good in their power game. They're both good in short yardage. David Montgomery's maybe had more of a proven track record. He's had less injuries to deal with. But David Montgomery went for a significant contract. James Robinson goes for a 2-year, $8 million, and that's probably like up to $8 million with incentives. That's probably a lot less, but I mean, I would say they're similar because they're not explosive, but they win after contact. They win by fighting through contact, and they both have good vision in like short yardage situations. James Robinson's a very good short yardage running back. That's one of the things that I really like about him. So, yeah, that's the first move for the Patriots. James Robinson coming out of nowhere. I didn't really see the Patriots going veteran running back this offseason, but seeing that Damian Harris is going to go somewhere else, and we knew that based on his comments on Twitter recently, I really do like the addition of James Robinson, especially at only 25 years old, as the primary backup and insurance option for Ramondre Stevenson. The big move of the day, though. I mean, let's not kid around. The big move of the day is the New England Patriots signing Corvette, TikTok boy, Super Bowl champion, celebrity wide receiver, Juju Smith-Schuster. The Patriots have replaced Jakobi Meyers in a big way with a big name. That name is Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju is still only 26 years old. He gets a 3-year, $33 million contract with, I believe, 16 of that guaranteed. That is less guaranteed money than Jakobi Meyers, who got $21 million guaranteed. Both players got the identical term and identical money per year on average, $11 million, but both contracts are slightly different in terms of the structure and in terms of the incentives. Juju's is more incentivized. Jakobi's is more guaranteed. But Jakobi's might be more year to year. There's a lot of complicated aspects to that. But breaking down Jakobi for Juju, because that's what it's all about here, because they're both very similar role players. They're both number 2 wide receivers in the NFL. I think the Patriots upgraded here. Even though Juju has not played in the Patriots system before, and even though he has never played with Mac Jones before, I am going out on a limb and saying that the Patriots upgraded. And the reason I believe they upgraded is because Juju is better in the areas where I felt Jakobi was limited. Jakobi was a great possession receiver. Jakobi had very reliable hands. Jakobi, I will say this, a more reliable personality off of the field, and maybe won't rub some fans the wrong way like Juju may do in terms of, I wouldn't say his antics, because that's not what they are, but he is very new school. He is not an old school personality. So the way that fits into New England, it brings an exciting person to the New England Patriots in a way that Gronk was exciting for the Patriots. Juju is very much that same way. Kind of goofy, kind of out there, kind of different. That is Juju Smith-Schuster. Okay, so New England was lacking a lot of personality on their offense. They get that with Juju. Jakobi was very much, head down, work hard, football. You do worry a little bit about Juju post Super Bowl win. Will he have the same effort, the same motivation to go out there, given that he just had a 3-year contract? But Patriots are smart. They made it very incentivized. That was very smart. Now, why do I think he's an upgrade? Because he's one of the best yards after catch receivers in the NFL. Last season, he was second in the NFL in yards per catch after the catch, only behind Deebo Samuel, who's recognized as basically a running back when he gets the football. Juju was second in that category. Jakobi Meyers is not good after the catch. He catches the ball, and that's it. The play is over. Nothing else happens. Juju Smith-Schuster is a wild card after the catch. And mostly, it's because he is very strong. He has phenomenal balance. And he's very powerful for a receiver. I was impressed with Juju's ability to play within Kansas City and bounce back. You know, Juju was coming off of an injury. He was on a one-year prove-it deal. And he goes to a team that's playing for a Super Bowl, and he makes a ton of big plays in big games. He makes the marquee holding call where he beats James Bradbury on a whip route from the slot in order to get open. That causes the tug, and Juju and the Chiefs get the first down. Juju, I do feel like, is more explosive in his cuts. I think he has more agility to him for a big man. That is tough to defend, because I think what makes Juju a very good receiver is that he's got good agility on top of having good size. So it's hard to both contain his lateral ability and his size, because he can win and catch the ball, you know, over your head, or he can win through his route running. He's not the most deep speed type of guy, but that's not what he's going to be asked to do. Juju's going to be a big slot receiver for this team. He's going to resume the Jakobi Meyers role, but what you would expect out of that role is more yards after catch, more electrifying ability when he gets the football, and then I would say pretty even route running, pretty even separation abilities. But then on top of that, he is a very good blocker as well, and he plays with an edge to him. I've seen numerous times where he's like stiff-armed a player in open space. He's knocked a guy down through his blocking. He does play with a chip and an edge, despite, you know, what you would think given his off the field. But Juju does play with a nastiness to him on the field. He's almost a different person. And he is capable of going over the middle and taking big shots. And that's because he's a bigger guy and he's got some weight to him and like a lower body to him. If you've ever seen him, he's got a lower body to him where he can take a hit across the middle and survive game after game. So Juju Smith-Schuster, just talking about the statistics, I actually tweeted it out earlier today. The statistical comparison between the two players. Juju, per 17 games through his first few years in comparison to Jakobi Meyers, he has 86 catches compared to Jakobi's 62, 1,030 yards compared to Meyers' 722, and 6 touchdowns per year compared to Meyers' 1 touchdown per year, which was a really big problem with Jakobi. He just didn't produce a lot of touchdowns, which a lot of people, especially old school NFL heads, would say, you know, those touchdowns are more important than anything else. But, you know, just diving a little bit deeper, he is still only, like I said, he is only 26. He's 6'1", 215 according to Pro Football Reference. He looks bigger than that to me. He was drafted in the second round of the 2017 draft. Jakobi, another thing there, like, I think just athletically they're two different specimens, right? Jakobi was not, you know, great. He's not a great player because of his athleticism. He's a great player because of his brain and because of his savviness. Juju is athletically, he was drafted in the second round for a reason out of USC. Jakobi was undrafted. There's a reason for that. You know, when you look at their careers, Juju is an effective rookie player with 917 yards, playing with Antonio Brown at the time in 2017 as a 21-year-old, right? And he had 917 yards and 7 touchdowns. Then in year 2, he has a massive leap. Best year of his career, 111 catches, 1,400 yards, and 7 touchdowns. After that, he has a dip, at 23. In only 12 games, though, he does put up 42 catches for 552 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then he gets to old Ben Roethlisberger the last couple of years where he gets targeted underneath, spammed basically, 97 catches, 831 yards, 9 touchdowns. That's when Ben couldn't throw the ball down the field, and he was really forcing the ball to Juju for 97 catches on that season. So he's put up big catch totals. I mean, he's had 111 one year, 97 another, 78 last year with Patrick Mahomes as the number 2 target, 933 yards last year, almost 1,000 and 3 touchdowns. So the guy's been more productive than Jacoby. He's been productive basically every year he's been healthy. And I think he'll be productive in New England. I think Bill O'Brien will use him well, but expect him to play in the slot. Those are my thoughts on Juju, man. I'm excited, but I will say this. He is not a number 1 receiver. He is a very good number 2. Like, he is a guy that as a number 2 really does produce. Every time he's been a number 2 receiver, he has been a very good player. Like, basically every time he's a number 2, he puts up 900 yards plus or more, right? That's been his career. But when he's a number 1, when teams can really shift coverage towards him, double team him, focus attention on him, put the number 1 guy on him, he isn't as good. Okay, but as a number 2, he is a very good player. So that's kind of how I feel about Juju. I'm sad to see Jacoby leave, but I did feel we needed an upgrade. We did need a more athletic guy. I think Juju gives us that, and he's still young, so that's great. All right. Thank you guys for joining the live chat. If you're enjoying so far, don't forget to Gronk spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Okay, let's check Twitter just in case I missed anything. I just talked about James Robinson. If you missed that, please scroll back. The Patriots today have signed Juju, James Robinson, and Riley Reiff. I guess I might as well talk about Riley Reiff as well, hey? So, let's just pull up. Oh, yeah. On top of that, Apollo says we're paying him wide receiver 2 money. That's a great point. We are paying Juju wide receiver 2 money. Just so everybody understands that. He is basically getting the same contract as Jacoby. He's actually getting less guaranteed. So we kind of stole him, in my opinion. I think this is a little bit of a steal, considering he's in his prime right now. He's 26 years old. From all the reports, the Patriots actually view him as an ascending talent. So that's great to hear. And he just had the tutelage of Andy Reid. So he probably learned a lot in Kansas City, and he's going to take that to New England and probably learn some stuff from Bill O'Brien as well that can kind of craft and mold his game. So he's definitely a guy, like when you compare him to Jacoby, right? Jacoby to me is like a finished product. Like because of his athleticism, he'll never be better than he is right now. Still meaning that he's going to be a good player, but there's that ceiling that I think is capped with him. Juju has a higher ceiling. We've seen it in his career. He's had 1,400 yards, right? Especially if you have a great receiver on top on the depth chart. So looking at Riley Reiff as an offensive lineman that New England signed earlier today, he has played in the NFL for many years. He was drafted in 2012, okay? That was 10 years ago, guys. I think Tessa was probably 3 years old. He last year played for Chicago. He played for Detroit for many years, Minnesota for many years. He played for Cincinnati when they went to the Super Bowl. He started 12 games for Joe Burrow in that offense. Last year, he started basically his entire career. So when you look at his career numbers, he did only start 10 games last year for Chicago at 34 years old, which was 55% of the snaps. But before that, he played 92% for the Bengals, 100% for Minnesota, 90, 95, 96, 98, 100, 92, 97. So he's pretty much started every year. He's been a starting average offensive lineman in his career. That's pretty much what he is a starting average offensive lineman, at least, before last year, where I don't know if it was injuries or what it was for him. But just checking PFF in terms of his grades, he was graded as the 51st tackle in the NFL. He had the 48th best pass blocking grade. So if you do the math there's 32 starting tackles he basically grades, or 32 on one side, 32 on the other. You know, he's a little bit in that average area. And that's pretty much where he's ranked his whole career. He's been better at other times. You know, in 2014, 2015, that was kind of his prime. He ranked in the top 15. But after that, you know, from 2018 on, 26th, 37th, 38th, 49th, 51st. So he's had a little bit of a decline. But part of that's also playing for Chicago, where Chicago's kind of terrible, you know, offensive line-wise. Justin Fields kind of holds on the ball too long. There is some reason for optimism that he actually could be better this year than last year. I'm not certain that he'll start. I'm not certain that what he'll do exactly, but I know what he is, which is an average starting lineman that gives us a floor for the right tackle or left tackle position because he's played both. I would say he's a better right tackle from what I've seen than left tackle, but he can play either one. He's had a lot of experience in different systems, and he gives us a floor at the position that just in case we miss out on maybe a first round tackle or maybe we do something. I don't know exactly what their plan is, but we've brought in a lot of different offensive linemen. We re-signed Yodny Kajust, or Kajus, depending on how you pronounce his name. Trent Brown is our left tackle for now, but there's always the possibility they cut him given his contract. And then they also signed Kelvin Anderson, who has some upside but is unproven. Riley Reif's kind of the opposite. He has a floor, but he's pretty much what he is at this point. So those are my thoughts on the Patriots moves for now. What's up, Tessa? How you doing? What's up, Alberto? Tessa says, me after hearing Baker Mayfield going to the Bucs, well, looks like the Bucs are going to win 5 games. You're probably right. 5 might be actually being optimistic. Andrew says, is T.Y. going to be ready this year at wide receiver? T.Y., is that T.Y. Hilton or Ty? Or you mean Tyquan Thornton? Who are you talking about? Matthew says, is Juju number 1 caliber receiver, or should the Pats go after someone like OBJ? Okay, love the questions, guys. Keep them coming. I'm going to try to get to all the signings as we keep going tonight. I probably plan on being here for 2 hours, so keep them coming. Keep them coming. And thank you to all the new people as well. Matthew says, is Juju number 1? I would say no. So as I broke down his career and what I think of him, I think he's a good number 2. He's a good number 2 with some upside that he can put up number 1 numbers, but it's more because he is the number 2. So if you look at his career, he was basically a number 2 receiver who's put up some number 1 numbers when he's had Antonio Brown, supporting him, right? So Antonio Brown was there with the Steelers, or Travis Kelce was there with the Chiefs. There's no coincidence that Juju was better in those situations. But I do think he's an upgrade over Jacoby Myers, as I expressed, because I think he's athletically better. He's better after the catch. He's more explosive, etc. So I think he is a good number 2, but I think they still need to look for a number 1, in my opinion. Whether that comes, they could go in a variety of different ways. They could trade for somebody. Maybe it's D-Hop. Maybe it's Cooks. Maybe it's somebody we're not aware of. It's not going to be Jerry Jeudy because they play the same position. It's not going to be Jerry Jeudy. Odell Beckham would be, I think, the best. In my opinion, Odell would be the best decision. And the reason I say that is because I think he'll be the cheapest. And I think you don't have to trade for him. So he's on the open market. And maybe he's the riskiest, but I think he is a perimeter receiver that I think would fit the offense very well. And he would give him another, at the very least, high-end number 2 quality, but he would ask the other team to play him as a number 1, which would open up everyone else more. So Odell to me would be the wisest because you don't have to give up assets for him. But they could go first-round receiver too. So that's another possibility where that's maybe a number 1 too. So, and they're drafting in the mid first round. So you're guaranteed to get one of the top receivers drafted this year. Usually when they draft a receiver, they're drafting them in the 2nd or 3rd or 4th round, or, like late first was N'Keal Harry. So there's still some question there. Even though they could have picked 5 or 7 different receivers that were better than him that year, but they didn't. but that's just my opinion. Devontae Parker and a second enough for D-Hop. I'm not sure what's going on with Parker. My thing right now would be he probably stays because he's only making, from what I understand, $6 million this year. So that's not crazy. And I think Devontae Parker would be a really good number 3. But that also comes into question, like his contract is movable. You also have Kendrick Bourne. You also have Tyquan Thornton. So Parker, out of all of these guys on the roster right now, if you are going to sign Odell or you're going to trade for somebody, something like that, then Parker is definitely the most movable. I would say that a second and Parker would be too much. I think that's too much to offer for D-Hop. Personally, I think I'd probably offer Parker in a third, honestly. I think because of the age and because of the contract, I think D-Hop's a top 10 receiver without a doubt, but there is risk there moving forward in his career because of his age. So and because of when you look at the rest of the landscape of NFL players, what they're going for right now. I mean, Darren Waller went for a third. Some of these guys, like Cooper, went for a 5th last year or whatever he went for. Like, we've seen some really good players, receivers, go for less. Now, if it were to be a second, I wouldn't be mad about that. I'd be like, okay, yeah, cool. I'm cool with that. I wouldn't be mad, but I would be maybe a little bit surprised just given the landscape of everything else going on. Jordan, what's going on, man? What's up, MD? Saying hello to people. Patty is in the chat. Who's going to be the QB? Jones, for sure. Unless they get Lamar, which probably isn't happening. Is Todd Bowles the worst coach of all time? Probably not. Yeah, Patriots just got James Robinson. I talked about that. How do you know we're getting Gesicki, Pats Forever? I would love Gesicki, though. I really like Gesicki. Is that also a rumor? I'm trying to check here. Mac Jones is now following Mike Gesicki on Instagram, and Gesicki follows the Patriots on Twitter. Grain of salt as always, but eyeball emoji worthy if you're into that sort of thing. The Patriots have recently followed Mike Gesicki on Twitter. Interesting. NFL rumors put out the New England Patriots have interest in Gesicki. Okay. I like it. He would be a good option too. I wonder how that would all work though. I do wonder how that would work. Where is Lamar Jackson playing? Probably Baltimore, but I really have no idea. Hey, MD, I remember you. What's going on, man? A.J. Brown went for more than a first. Same with Tyreek. Yeah, but both, I would say, are better than D-Hop. Less of a problem than D-Hop. D-Hop feels like every year or two he wants a new contract. And then on top of that, he hasn't been suspended for PEDs. There's a lot of different things there. Like, A.J. Brown is in his prime. Tyreek Hill in his prime. D-Hop maybe a little past it. Like, he's 30? 31? So I would say he's not as valuable as those players. But he is a great player. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to, like, lessen the thing. Like, I'd be ecstatic with DeAndre Hopkins, but the last couple of years, he hasn't even played a full season. So there's that as well. And part of that was because of suspension. So I think that lessens his value a little bit. But that could also provide that he is a steal. No way Lamar goes to the Niners, right? I wish that would be unbelievable. I would bet all of my money on them to win the Super Bowl, but that's not going to happen. Okay. I talked about the Panthers, bro. Scroll back. That was the first thing I talked about. So we got the Patriots and the Panthers done. Oh, I also need to talk about one more thing about the Panthers. I guess I missed one. Still got to talk about Deshaun Williams, who signed with the Panthers. I talked about the offensive guys. I will talk about Baker. Guys, I'm going to be here all night. 2 hours, so don't worry. Just stick around, Gronk spike the like button, all right? Okay. Just checking the numbers for Deshaun Williams, the PFF stuff. Let's see. Okay. 500. All right. What was the contract? I don't see a contract, but whatever. The Carolina Panthers have also signed another interior defensive lineman, one familiar with their new defensive coordinator. Deshaun Williams is a Carolina Panther. The 30-year-old big defensive lineman will be playing alongside Derek Brown and Shy Tuttle for the Carolina Panthers. This is a great scheme fit who's coming off a career year as a pass rusher for the Denver Broncos. Deshaun Williams graded as the 85th best interior defensive lineman in football last year, playing 598 snaps for the Carolina Panthers. He played 17 games for Denver last year, 15 starts. He is 30 years old, had 4.5 sacks, 37 tackles on the year, and he is teaming back up with Evero, who was his defensive coordinator for the Broncos last year. This is another guy that is going to beef up the interior defensive line. I would expect him to be a primary starter for Carolina this year. And just another, very much probably not the upside of Tuttle. Tuttle's a bit younger. Tuttle's, I would say, maybe a bit better. But almost immediately, I think Williams is going to slot right in there and play some sort of role on the interior in that rotation. So Carolina beefing up their offensive skill positions with Miles Sanders and Hayden Hurst. And now with a big D lineman, Deshaun Williams. There we go. Okay, what else we want to talk about? We've got the Saints signing a couple mid D tackles. We've got that. The Steelers side. What do you guys want to talk about next? Steelers signed Holcomb, the linebacker. Saints signing 2 defensive linemen. The Bucs signing Baker Mayfield. What else? Texans signed Sheldon Rankins. Jamal Williams, Jacoby Brissett. Am I related to Nick Folk? No. Why? Baker with the Bucs? What's the contract there? I'm trying to check. Hey, Alex, what's going on, man? The people need Zach Cunningham or Rashawn Evans to the Browns. Connor just wants a big, massive linebacker to just kill people on Cleveland. That's what he wants. 1 year, $8 million. Okay, let's double check that. I don't trust Hector. Gronk spike the like button, guys. Paul says 8.5. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Baker. What did PFF have to say about Baker this year? The 37th quarterback in the NFL. My goodness gracious. Okay. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers may have just signed their quarterback for hopefully just the 2023 NFL season. His name is Baker. Baker, the commercial maker. 1 year, $8.5 million. Baker Mayfield is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers potential starting quarterback. He's at the very least going to compete with Kyle Trask and whoever else they bring in for this job for Todd Bowles' squad. There are some positives to this move. The Bucs are trying to remain somewhat respected by bringing in someone like Baker Mayfield with the first overall pick in his history, with playoff appearances in his history. A guy that's a good leader, a guy that's a big personality, can certainly lead a football team, has a lot of experience in the league so far with 69 starts, 72 games played. He does have a 31-38 record as a starter. He has had some success, one winning season in 2020. There is some respectability to bringing in Baker Mayfield for 1 year, $8.5 million. But last year, man, I did not see a quarterback play much worse than I saw Baker Mayfield play. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. Last year, Baker Mayfield, for the Carolina Panthers, was atrocious, okay? For Carolina, he was atrocious. He had a 58% completion percentage, 6 touchdowns to 6 picks, and he was 1-5 in 6 games. He threw for 187 yards per game. It was bad, okay? His passer rating was 74.4 in Carolina. Now, I will say this. He was better with the Rams. If you're looking for a bright spot, Bucs fans, and I'm still going to be cheering for the Bucs. I know that Brady's not there anymore, but I like a lot of you fans that are Bucs fans, and you guys have been supportive of me and the BLV, and I still love a lot of players there. I mean, Chris Godwin, Levante David, Devin White, Vita Vea, Jamel Dean, Mike Evans. I love a lot of their players, Tristan Wirfs, so I'm still going to be rooting for them. 86.4 passer rating last year with the Rams. Had 850 yards in 4 games and 4 touchdowns to only 2 picks. So his touchdown to interception ratio improved. His passer rating improved. He went 1-3 as a starter. Now, that was without Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald. You know, he wasn't on a very good team at that point. But he was graded as the 3rd worst quarterback in the NFL, according to PFF. Zach Wilson and Taylor Heineken were only worse. I'm actually surprised to see him. I'm not surprised to see Zach Wilson. Looking at the rest of his grades from a PFF standpoint, he did have an elite grade in 2020, or a very good grade in 2020 and 2018, grading as a top 11 quarterback in both seasons. 2019, he graded as the 17th best quarterback. In 2021, he has been trending downwards since 30th and then 37th. I think one of the big marquee notes of this is the fit. Okay, so when you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they are no longer, I think a lot of people are going to think of them, right, as a team that still runs the Byron Leftwich, Bruce Arians type of offense. They are drastically changing their scheme this year. So Byron Leftwich was fired, okay? Much of the offensive staff was fired, rightfully so. They were friggin' putrid, okay? That is not the scheme anymore. In my opinion, the scheme that put more pressure on the quarterback position from a passing standpoint than any scheme in the NFL. There's a reason Jameis Winston threw 30 interceptions. That should not happen, okay? For any quarterback, even Jameis Winston, okay? But a lot of pressure goes on that quarterback in that system. They now have a new offensive coordinator who, from my understanding, I'm not too familiar with him, but from my understanding, he comes from Seattle. So when you understand he comes from Seattle, right, and looking at his Wikipedia page, I believe you pronounce his name Dave Canels, I'm not sure, Canels maybe. He's comes from Seattle. He's been in Seattle since 2010. Okay, wide receiver coach, quarterback coach, passing game coordinator, quarterback coach. So he's been there. I question what type of scheme he's going to play, but if it's anything similar to what Shane Waldron runs, you're running a system very similar to what Baker was running with Sean McVay. Okay, so that would have some carryover to the Baker Mayfield from the Rams, right? So Baker could, in theory, produce Rams quality with the new coaching staff. If you were putting Baker inside the Byron Leftwich offense, I mean, I would have bet the Bucs to get the first overall pick. But he's not going to be running that. I think there's going to be more play action, more some of the stuff that he was running in Cleveland, more play action, boot stuff like that, okay? So it's going to be a drastically different offense. He's also going to have some pretty talented receivers over there. Chris Godwin should be healthier this year. That should be a plus. So I think Baker is a tough one to really gauge. He could be good in moments, but most likely you're going to get someone that's pretty inconsistent. You're going to be closer to Jameis Winston than you were Tom Brady. But even then, I wouldn't expect a prolific passing a game like we saw from Jameis. So I think Baker's going to be a low-end starter. But that's exactly what the Bucs are looking for. I think the Bucs are in somewhat of a rebuild. They still have some serviceable players across offense and defense. They still have enough talent to win, to not be an embarrassment, to win 5-6 games. Kyle Trask, who Patty wants me to talk about, I think is atrocious. So I do think Baker Mayfield's better than him. But we will see how Kyle Trask fits into this new offense in preseason, and I'm sure that will be a preseason battle. There's going to be Bucs fans that like Kyle Trask. Personally, I think he's terrible. But that's just my opinion. Okay? So it won't be Tom Brady, but it won't be a disaster, in my opinion. That's my thoughts on Baker. I hope that he does well, because I think Baker seems like a good guy. He's got a great personality, and he's better for the NFL when he's doing well, because he's an exciting character. So I hope he does well, but I don't know. I don't think so. Okay, so that's Baker Mayfield. Do we want to talk about now Jacoby Brissett? It seems like a natural kind of carry over there. Jacoby. What was the deal for Jacoby? Did anyone see the deal for Jacoby? Gronk spike the like button, guys, if you haven't. Subscribe if you haven't. Talk Giants? They haven't signed anyone today, have they? I already talked about the Giants the last 2 days. If they haven't signed anyone today, I'm not talking about you. Darius Slay is trying to come back to the Eagles now. I don't know what's going on there. Sorry, I was just reading that. Okay, trying to check this Brissett deal. I talked about Juju earlier. Just scroll back if you want to hear that, guys. I'm also going to put it out as a separate video. So if you just want to wait for that, then you can do that as well. I'm trying to find if Brissett's contract details are out, but I don't see any. Okay, I see it now. Jeremy Fowler says 1 year, $8 million that can hit $10 million. PJ Walker, Pajama Walker to the Bears. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. You gotta love yourself some Pajama Walker, you know what I mean? Okay, I don't know if I want to talk about that though. Okay. $8 mil, 10. What was I gonna look for? Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, Jacoby. He's 30 already? Wow. PJ can probably throw the ball better than their starter. I'll say that much. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Brissett. The Washington Commanders maybe have their new starting quarterback for 2023. Jacoby Brissett was one of my favorite undervalued quarterbacks on the market, signing a 1-year, $8 million for 2023. It could be $10 million in 2023, potentially, given performance. Jacoby Brissett had a very strong year last year for Cleveland in place of Deshaun Watson. I felt like he played his best football of his career as a starting quarterback with the Cleveland Browns. A lot of that had to do with throwing the ball down the field, coming off of play action, playing inside a strong running game, and a lot of play action. And what I like about Washington and the carryover between what he'll do in Washington is throwing the ball vertical, because you've got Curtis Samuel, you've got Terry McLaurin, you've got Jahan Dotson, you've got some guys that want to go down the field. That's what Washington was focusing on last year. And the fact of the matter is that Heineken, as much as I love him and as much as he is the next Ryan Fitzpatrick, could not get the job done. He did not have a big enough arm, and he could not throw the ball down the field the way Washington wanted to. Jacoby was very good in that area last year. And just for reference and just for comparison, Jacoby Brissett graded as the 6th best quarterback in football last year, according to Pro Football Focus, with an elite rushing grade of 91.5, but a passing grade of 75.2 and 82.6, which, comparison to Washington's other starter, he was second last, only above Zach Wilson. So Jacoby Brissett had his best year of his career, according to PFF, according to my eyes. And also in 2021, he was graded 15th with a different team entirely, the Miami Dolphins. So Jacoby, last 2 years, has played his best football of his career. He started for different teams. Indianapolis, he's played 2 games for New England. But he played for Indianapolis. He played about 2 seasons worth of games in 2017 and 2019. Then he went to Miami, where he only played 5 games. And then he went to Cleveland, where he played 11 games. And as my guy Connor McLeod here, Browns fan himself, would say, that he outperformed Deshaun Watson. And I don't think that's wrong at all. You know, in my opinion, watching the 2 teams play and the quarterbacks play, I thought Jacoby was more composed. I thought he made better decisions, and I do think he threw the ball better, more accurately than Deshaun Watson, who's getting a guaranteed ridiculous contract. And I know that he was coming off of time off of the football field, but a 64 completion percentage, which was a career best last year, 2,608 yards in only 11 games, which produced a 163 yards per game. That's 12 touchdowns, so only 6 picks. And a passer rating of 88.9, which was also a career best. He also took 24 sacks in 11 games, which was a career best sack percentage of 6.1. So in a lot of areas, he improved his play. Also, on top of that, I'm going to dive into some of the deeper statistics here for Jacoby, just because I'm honestly just curious of some of his, see what Pro Football Focus has to say about his big time throws and things of that nature. Let's check it out. So, Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett. Big time throw percentage was 17th. That was actually tied with Jalen Hurts and Russell Wilson, Kenny Pickett, above Kenny Pickett and Russell Wilson. His turnover-worthy play percentage was 3.1, which on 20% of the snaps ranked 20th, which was just below Daniel Jones and Trevor Lawrence and Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, pretty good numbers overall when you look at all avenues, all different approaches. He didn't have super amazing receivers either. I think the receivers in Washington are better. The offensive line in Cleveland is better. The run game in Cleveland is better. But the play calling could potentially be better in Washington given Eric Bieniemy is the new offensive coordinator. So that's going to be an interesting blend of what they do in Washington. How much of what they did last year are they going to carry over into this year? How much of the Kansas City offense are we going to see? How much of the philosophy of throwing the ball down the field are we going to see? That's going to be interesting to watch. Jacoby can also be an excellent short yardage rusher. He's a cheat code on quarterback sneaks. So that's something that he also brings to the table. He's a big guy. He can scramble a little bit. He takes big hits and he can come back from it. It's very rare that he gets hurt because of his stature. He is one of the biggest quarterbacks in the game. He makes better decisions than what they had previously. The only real knock I would say on a Jacoby Brissett is he doesn't win a lot. I think that's the biggest knock. Now, he hasn't played on a lot of great teams. I don't think you could ever say he's played on a great team or an above average team. I think the best team he's played on from a talent standpoint might be the 2019 Colts, where he went 7-8 as a starter. Last year, he went 4-7. The year before that, he went 2-3. So below 500, not extremely, but neither team was great. Cleveland had a terrible defense. Miami wasn't great either. Bad offensive line, things of that nature. So I feel like Jacoby maybe could be on a team that's just as talented as a Cleveland last year, maybe even more so from a defensive standpoint for sure, from a receiver standpoint for sure, and I would say a more complete team than Miami was in 2021. So the 2016 Patriots, as somebody comments from Apollo, doesn't mean anything because he only played 2 games. So I'm not going to include that overall and he was also a rookie. So I wouldn't include that. But yeah, Jacoby, good guy, great in the locker room, great leader, has been a great fit everywhere. I think for Sam Howell, whether Sam Howell's the guy or not, he's going to push Sam Howell. And at the very least, he's going to be a high-end backup. And at best, he could be actually a surprisingly good starter, as we've seen the last couple of years. So I really like this move. I like this move a heck of a lot more than I like Baker Mayfield. I like this move more than I like pretty much every other, high-end backup in the league that you could have potentially gotten. So Jacoby Brissett, great move for Washington. I think that makes them a lot better at quarterback, a lot more competent at that position. And I actually think Washington is sneaky this year. If they can make a couple more moves, their roster isn't too far away from being playoff competitive. And they haven't been far away the last couple of years, winning 7 games last season. So Jacoby Brissett, 1 year, $8 million, up to 10 for 2023. To the Commanders. Curtis is a different player from Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's like a hybrid receiver, running back, playmaker. I think Mac's going to have his best year this year, Sean. Whether that means to you, I don't know. But I think he's going to have his best year this year. How do I feel about James Robinson? I talked about it earlier, bro, but I like it. I like it. I think he's a good player. I also love that the Patriots are being underrated. I like being the underdog. Did I talk about Thornhill? Not yet. I'll talk about him right now if you want. Did the Browns sign anybody else today, or did I miss something? James Robinson he tweeted, by the way. I don't know if you guys saw that. But he said, let's get it. Time to work. There you go, Pats fans. Okay. Let's see. Thornhill. I saw the Browns also released Clowney. The Pats are old? Pats aren't old. What do you mean? You mean like roster-wise? They're pretty young. Okay. Talk about Juan Thornhill. Now let me just bring up his numbers. Patty, what are you feeling about the Chiefs? They are not old. What do you mean? Okay. Let's check Cleveland. Okay. All right, Juan Thornhill, let's go. The Cleveland Browns have signed a safety, as we thought they would, because they desperately needed a safety. For 3 years, Juan Thornhill, 2-time Super Bowl champ of the Kansas City Chiefs, has signed a 3-year, $21 million deal with 14 fully guaranteed for the first 2 years. He has started 52 games for the Chiefs, and he will start at safety for the Cleveland Browns, and he is already, without even playing a game, the most talented safety that the Cleveland Browns have and have had, I would say, over the last couple of years. John Johnson is gone, cut, see you later. Grant Delpit is still there. We'll see if he remains active as a starter for Cleveland. Not sure their plans for the rest of the offseason at this position. But Juan Thornhill, graded as the 20th best safety in football last year for the Kansas City Chiefs. He had a 75 coverage grade, which I also, just by seeing it, is ranked in the top 20. And I actually predicted Juan Thornhill to end up with the Cleveland Browns. And why did I predict it? I predicted it because I felt like with the new system coming to town, Jim Schwartz, our guy, Jim Schwartz, that Juan Thornhill's deep free safety capabilities of what he was responsible for in Kansas City would be very similar and seamless in Cleveland, because Schwartz at times can be laid back and conservative. He can play a lot of zone. Okay, Thornhill did a lot of that last year. A lot of cover 2 with Spags last year. But at other times, Spags can also be very elaborate and very creative and very blitz heavy, right? With Kansas City. And Thornhill also thrived as a single safety in the middle of the field and a man coverage player as well. So Schwartz does the same thing. Schwartz is very much similar to Spags in their approach. Sometimes they're super aggressive to a fault, and sometimes they're laid back and more conservative defensively, depending on their talent at the pass rushing level. So I'd expect Cleveland to more lean into 4-man rush, zone coverage, things as they've been doing, but then mix in more aggressiveness, more blitzing, like Schwartz typically likes to do. So he likes to play a diverse, more versatile style of defense than what we've seen Cleveland play in recent history, which is a great sign for Cleveland fans because they were disaster on defense. So Juan Thornhill is 6 foot. He is 203 pounds. Age 27. He will be 28 this year in October. So still relatively young, but, a little bit closer to 30. He's played 4 seasons in the NFL. This past year, he set his career high in tackles with 71. He has 3 interceptions in 2 seasons, one of them coming this past year. And he set his career best in passes defended as well, with 9 in 2023. This past season, it's kind of hard to gauge given his responsibilities. You know, when people look at rating and completion percentage allowed, you know, the guy is responsible usually for the deeper aspects of the field. So what's really on him and what's really not on him. But what I like about his game is I think he does a really good job of reading quarterbacks and being able to jump the football and play deep and be that help safety for cornerbacks across the defense. I think he does a good job. Sometimes he's a little inconsistent as a tackler. We've seen in moments he's not the best against the run, but that's because he's not really built for that. He's more of a coverage safety. He's more of a guy that's, I think he brings more range, more speed, more athleticism to the safety position than Cleveland has had. I think one of the problems that they had at safety was that range. I think Thornhill brings that, and I think that's why they like him, because he has the versatility, but he also has the range and the brain to be able to read what's going on the field and jump the ball and save the big completion down the field. That's what I think you're getting here, is a guy that not always is going to be brought up in conversations for leading the NFL in interceptions. That's not the type of player you're getting. You're more getting that last line of defense type of player that not all the time is going to be discussed in a game, but is going to, you know, be responsible for not giving up big plays, which Cleveland has had some problems with. So I think he fits in well. I think he fits the scheme well. And I believe that because I predicted it. So that's one of the rare times that actually happens. But usually when that happens, I'm pretty happy about the signing. So, and I think the money is not bad. I don't think it's irresponsible by any means. 3 years, $21 million, 14 fully guaranteed. That's pretty damn solid for a good starter. I'm not going to say Thornhill's elite. I'm not going to say he's like a tier 2 safety. I think he's a good starter. You're not, you know, going to be mad at all about watching him play, and you're not going to be wanting to replace him at any moment. You're just going to have a very solid starter on your hands. And according to PFF, maybe even better than solid. So that's my opinion on Juan Thornhill to the Cleveland Browns. Let's get to the next move. Matt Jones just followed DeAndre Hopkins, Odell Beckham Jr., and Mike Gesicki on Instagram. Let's go, Mac! What do you think, Monty? What do you think? Oh, shit. The Bengals! The Bengals! Oh my God! The Bengals! Yo, good on Mac Jones. He's gonna slide into the DM. Oh my, what a contract! Orlando Brown has a new home with the Cincinnati Bengals. The premier left tackle and tackle on the market, Orlando Brown, lands with the Bengals. 4 years, $64 million. $31 million in signing bonus. The best tackle for my money on the market, still young, is going to be protecting Joseph Burrow and allowing him the time to get the ball down the field to T. Higgins and to Jamar Chase. The Bengals are all in with this offense. All in. Now, I do believe that Collins is going to be cut. I think they're going to cut him. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think they're going to cut him. That leaves the question. Does Orlando Brown continue to insist that he'll play left tackle? Because I do think we've seen in the NFL, he is a better right tackle. He is a better right tackle. in my opinion. But what I will say is that he's a much better fit for Cincinnati than Kansas City. Kansas City does do a better job of like helping their linemen out and scheming ways for them to get help. Don't get me wrong. But Orlando Brown is a massive human being. Massive, okay? He is a power lineman. The Bengals last year shifted into more of a power running style, which is very similar to Baltimore, right? And Orlando Brown played his best in Baltimore. Last year, Kansas City's more of a zone team. They have different concepts, but they're more of a zone team. They want their linemen to be more active, moving. And then on top of that, Burrow and Mahomes. People got to understand this. Mahomes is the best quarterback in football. I'm not taking anything away from Patrick Mahomes. But if there is one thing that he does that's a detriment to his linemen, he moves everywhere. Okay? So think about this for a second. You're Orlando Brown. You can't move. Okay? Check his 40 time. I think it's like 5:10. It might be slower than Caesar. Okay? Orlando Brown is a statue, but he is a monster. He's very powerful. Once he gets his hands on you, you don't move. Okay? Joe Burrow is a pocket manipulator. He is not a scrambler. He's a pocket manipulator. He might hold on to the ball, but he looks for lanes to move. Mahomes is doing circles, running around, running to the left, running to the right. So when you're protecting that type of quarterback, a pass rusher might get around you, and for most guys that are pocket passers, that guy will step up and make the throw, right? Mahomes might slide around and run into the pressure, but still get the throw off. So that was kind of not the greatest fit for Orlando Brown, because Orlando would have to reset and move and get, out of position. And that being said, it's not like he was bad with the Chiefs. Did he have some inconsistencies? Sure. He had some inconsistencies with the Chiefs. But, I'm looking at his numbers right now. Orlando Brown, as a player in the NFL, last season, was graded 75.8 last year in the NFL. That is a good grade for a tackle. I'm trying to figure out where that was exactly. And PFF is not helping me right now. Okay, there we go. Tackle position. Okay, he graded as the 19th best tackle in the NFL. That is better than all the other tackles that were on the market this year. So when you look at the money and you look at the contract, he was better than all of those players. McGlinchey, McGarry, all those guys, okay? According to PFF and according to me. He had a 76.8 pass blocking grade, which was stronger than his run block grade, okay? So that's good. And in his career, 2018, he ranked 42nd, which was his rookie year, his worst year of his career. Since then, he ranked 24th, 25th, 28th, and 19th with two different teams, Baltimore, Kansas City. Left tackle, right tackle. He's started and he's played at a Pro Bowl level on two different teams, okay? On top of that, see, I think there's a lot of Orlando Brown hate out there. I would have liked him on my team as a Patriots fan. He is 26 years old. He has missed 0 games in his NFL career. He is a 4-time Pro Bowler, 4 consecutive seasons a Pro Bowler with two different teams. Okay? He has started 100% of his snaps, 100% of the snaps, 100% of the snaps, 98% of the snaps. So, and that was probably only because they took him out because they were leading in games. That's probably it. In terms of penalties, that's one of his negatives. He has taken some penalties in his career. 6 penalties last year, 4 for false start, only 2 for holding. And he's only ever taken holding calls the max was 2. So not that bad. But I know that Chiefs fans have been a little critical of him taking some false starts and things of that nature. And I think Chiefs fans, oftentimes try to, like, I don't know, bump up Mahomes' legacy by saying he didn't have protection or something. But I'm not sure if you watched the Super Bowl. The protection was pretty good in that game. So Orlando Brown is a stud. He's young. He's in his prime. He's worth the money. He's played... I don't know. There aren't many tackles that are this good that actually get to the open market, that are 26 years old, and that are 4-time Pro Bowlers, and that have been achieved what they've achieved in their career to what he has achieved. I'm not trying to blow this out of proportion and say he's the best tackle in the NFL. That's not the case. But he is a very good player. He is a probably top 10-ish tackle in the NFL, in my opinion. So I think that's a good deal. That's a great move. I'm excited for the Bengals because now what they've done here is they've secured their long-term offense. They've got Jamar Chase, who they're going to sign. Joe Burrow, who they're going to sign. They're going to sign T. Higgins. Tyler Boyd might be the one to go. Joe Mixon might be gone soon. Look up Tristan Wirfs' stats. Oh, Tristan Wirfs is probably the best tackle in the league or second. So behind Trent Williams. I'm not saying he's Tristan Wirfs. Okay, don't get me wrong. But he's really good. Okay, he's really good. Yeah, I think it's an awesome move because it fits the timeline. It protects your biggest asset. And you steal a player, one of their better offensive linemen, away from your biggest competition. And I talked about Jawan Taylor, like, has not been the player Orlando Brown has been. Right? So they signed him cheaper than Orlando Brown because they knew they couldn't afford him. But Jawan Taylor's still kind of a work in progress in some facets. He's coming off his best year, things like that. He could get better. I think Andy Reid will make him a better player. I like the signing to a certain degree, but it's also riskier. This risk is low, in my opinion, because he's been proven in 2 different teams. So, yeah, I really like this move. This is breaking news, but I really like this move. I think there's going to be people that don't like this move, and I think those people are wrong, and I'm willing to say that. But he says, I'm super thankful for the opportunity to carry on my father's legacy and be a left tackle. It was important to be able to play that position and play for a winning team and a winning quarterback. Who dey? So I'm not sure. I guess he's going to play left tackle. But I wonder if, hold on. Has Jonah Williams played right tackle? I don't think so, right? Jonah Williams is solid too, though. I don't think so. Maybe he played both last year. I'm going to look at this. Because I think Collins is going to get cut. Unless they keep Collins and they get rid of Williams, that's a possibility, I guess. Humphrey and Tooney are their best, but Brown was their third, I would say. But those were both, like, Tooney and Humphrey are, like, elite. They're, like, the top 3 or 4 at their position. So Jonah Williams, you're saying he swung. I don't see any information about this, so that's unfortunate. Let's see. Anything deeper here? Okay. So he played all of his snaps at left tackle in 2022. Let's check 2021. All of them at left tackle. 2020. Okay, 2020. No, all at left tackle. So he's played exclusively at left tackle. Williams could also play guard. I think that's where he played in college, didn't he? Or he played some in college? I don't know. I don't remember. That was too long ago. We'll see, though. I guess that's up to them. But Williams is also 25 years old. So you got Jonah Williams, who's 25. You've got Orlando Brown, who's 26, as your tackles, potentially. That's pretty good. Okay. So we did Thornhill. Who's next? We did Brissett. Mac Jones flirting with OBJ on Instagram. What would you say as a DM to try to get someone on your team? What do you think of Taven Bryan, Connor, going to the Colts? You talk about Zeke? Sure, as long as you guys ask the question. I'm not going to talk about cuts or re-signs unless you bring it up. So if you guys bring it up, thank you, by the way, for the super chat, which very disappointing. Nobody else is super chatting me, but thank you, Patty. He says, love your streams and you should talk about Zeke. Yeah, so I was surprised, honestly, that he got cut. Not because he's like this great running back or anything, just because of his time in Dallas, his draft status, his image. Jerry Jones loves the guy, from my understanding. So I was surprised that they moved on from him, his contract, things like that. I'm surprised by that. But I think it's a good move. I think you move forward. Tony Pollard's your guy. You officially claim that. And then you can bring in another running back. You could draft a running back if you want. You could do whatever you want, but I think it's a good move, and I hope Zeke lands somewhere else and plays a couple more years and does well. I mean, I hope Zeke does well, but I think the signs the last couple of days from Dallas are great indicators. I think Dallas has had a very good offseason so far. I loved the trade for Stephon Gilmore. I think them cutting Zeke was a very good indication of their new thought process. Them re-signing Leighton Vander Esch was a steal. They got Donovan Wilson back. So two key defenders. I think they re-signed Dante Fowler too, which I didn't think they would, and I like Dante Fowler. Offensively, they need to find a receiver, and honestly, that's about it. I feel like they're just going to build in the draft from here on out, but man, I like Dallas this year. I think they've got a real nice team entering this next year, because you look at their team, and they've got a lot of chemistry too that's built up. I think that's important. When you look at a team like Philadelphia, they've got a lot of moving pieces, a lot of new players coming in. So you look at Dallas, really their only needs right now, I would say maybe depth on the offensive line or a new tackle from the first round and a receiver who I would prefer to be a veteran, a backup running back, which again is not a big deal. You can find those on the street. Interior D-line could use a bit of depth. I don't know if they'll re-sign Carlos Watkins or not. And I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, their secondary is stacked. They have an awesome secondary, and linebackers are good. They've got two good edge rushers, three good edge rushers. Dorrance Armstrong's also good. So I think Dallas is in great shape. I think they need to make a couple more moves, and most of it will come in the draft. Rumor is Zeke to Tampa. I hope not, says Rick. It doesn't make sense from a timeline standpoint. I think Zeke as a veteran running back needs to go somewhere that's competing as like a backup. Connor says, Taven Bryan outperformed my expectations. He was easily the best interior defensive lineman on the Browns. Okay. Interesting. Let's talk about him. Shall we? Just quickly here. Where did I put his contract? So it's a 1 year, $4.5 million. I also do agree that I think he had his best season of his career last year. Let's look. Defense. D-line. Okay. All right. Let's see where he lands on that depth chart. I think he's probably a depth guy, right? He's not going to start, I would assume. Okay. The Indianapolis Colts continue to beef up their defensive line. They already signed a underrated name from the 49ers, Samson Ebukam, and he now will be joining forces with a former Cleveland Brown coming off his best season of his young career. Taven Bryan, a former first-round pick of the Jacksonville Jags. Bryan was drafted by Jacksonville in the AFC South, and now he lands back in the AFC South. Coming off 16 starts, the most of his career with Cleveland at 26 years old, 3 sacks on the season, and 26 tackles. Bryan had 23 pressures and led the way for Cleveland's interior defensive line from a pass rushing standpoint. When I think about this move and think about how it may work on a 1-year, $4.5 million deal, I see it as a depth interior defensive lineman, probably the 3rd interior defensive lineman for the Colts, and he'll come in on pass downs because I think I look at this for Gus Bradley's defense, which, by the way, very similar scheme to what Cleveland was running last year. So it does seem like a good fit, and Cleveland's moving away from that style of defense. So Taven Bryan probably will slot in for Stewart, who's a big run stuffer, and I think Bryan will come in as an interior pass rusher on certain downs and distances next to DeForest Buckner. So that's how I kind of view his role on this team, as he was the most productive and consistent and efficient pass rusher on the interior for Cleveland, and Cleveland did have flaws with their interior. He's not the greatest run defender. I'm just going off my head here, but checking his grade just to see if that backs it up. Let's see if it backs it up or not. Let's see what PFF has to say here. Which, by the way, credit to PFF for being fast on the move. 69th overall. Okay, maybe I'm 58.6 run defense grade, which is slightly lower than his pass rush grade. So it wasn't bad, and it wasn't a huge difference. But in terms of grading, he was a better pass rusher. But in terms of numbers and just watching the Browns play, you would also think that. The other thing I like about Bryan is coming out, I liked him because he was very athletic for his size. He's a pretty big guy, 6'5", 291 pounds, but he's got a lot of athleticism to him. And there's a reason he was drafted in the late first round, because he was a bit of a project coming out, but he's got a lot of athleticism. So there's still maybe room to grow there, perhaps. At 27 years old, maybe you're getting him right at his peak of his powers, but a nice little rotation player for the Indianapolis Colts defensive line, who continues to kind of reform what it looks like on their D-line. Okay, what else is everybody saying in the chat? We've got Paul. He says, I think Kansas City's drafting DeJuan Jones, right tackle. Okay. I could see them drafting a tackle for sure. Big Al says, Jamal Williams signs with the Saints. Yes, I got to talk about that. Thanks for the reminder. Rob says, is Odell going to the Pats? I hope so. Mac Jones, follow him on Instagram. Not that means anything. He also followed D-Hop. Okay, shall we talk about Jamal? Jamal is an interesting one. I didn't really see this one coming, to be honest with you. Rob says the word on the streets is New England Juju Odell drafting wide receiver and tackle? Tight end and tackle. You think they'll draft a wide receiver after they sign Odell and Juju? I mean, I don't think it would be a first round pick. I'll say that. I think they would probably use that on defense, maybe. Okay. What's up, gaming season? Okay. The New Orleans Saints have some Alvin Kamara insurance and some Derek Carr help with Jamal Williams from the Detroit Lions, also a former Green Bay Packer. Coming off his best season by far of his career, Jamal Williams might be the next Mark Ingram next to Alvin Kamara with 262 carries last year, leading the way for the Detroit Lions as a 1,000-yard rusher, 1,066 yards to be exact, and leading the NFL with 17 touchdowns. A little-known fact, 4.1 yards per attempt, not the most efficient runner, but a tough runner, a powerful runner, and also a great character guy, He is a great personality, a great leader, a great locker room presence. He has shown more capabilities with the Packers to catch the ball. He did have 2 seasons with over 30 catches, but with the Lions, 2 seasons under 30 catches. So that's not his best role. He's more of a first and second down grinder type. Not super explosive, but a great red zone guy, a great short yardage guy, and a pretty big back. He's 6 foot 224, which is pretty tall for a running back. And he's going to have a nice 1-2 punch with Alvin Kamara, assuming that Kamara can find his way out of trouble off the field. He is also 27 years old. He is just turning 27. He's going to turn 28 this year, I believe. So he's getting a little older for a running back at 28. But he hasn't taken too much wear and tear. He did have some wear and tear this year with 262 carries. The interesting thing is his carries have been trending up. With the Lions, 153 last year, 262. Those were the most of his career. So I could see him getting closer to 150 again with the Saints, because Kamara is going to get a good portion of those carries as well. And then Kamara is also that receiving weapon, but it lessens the load on Alvin Kamara as a every down back. And that's not really what you want him to be, because you want to have that explosiveness from that guy. So I like this move because not only does it provide insurance for off the field Kamara business, but it also provides a nice 1-2 punch when they're both on the field. And it provides a great locker room presence for a team that's, whether you like it or not, competing, right? And the age isn't a problem. It's only a 2-year deal for $8 million. When you look at that and you compare it to other deals of Miles Sanders and David Montgomery, I think this is a steal, honestly. So this is pretty similar to what James Robinson got from the Patriots. So when you look at that, I mean, that's pretty fair. Both running backs are proven to some degree, and I feel like Jamal Williams is going to add a boost to the Saints. And as a team that's going for a division crown, it makes sense to make this move. So it was surprising at first. I didn't see it coming. But when I really sat back and thought about it, it made a lot of sense. So Jamal Williams to the New Orleans Saints. There we go. Okay, there's a bunch of tweets about Darius Slay right now. EJ says, wow, he got less than McGlinchey. Did he really? Wow. Oh, Jennifer Slay tweeted, we here, baby. So it looks like Darius Slay is re-signing with Philadelphia. Interesting. Okay. Gaming Season says, bro, ain't no way all that BS for Slay to be in Philly still. He is. He is still in Philly. They probably just wanted to rework his contract. Maurice Hurst to the Browns. Oh, he's like a super depth lineman at this point, bro. Miles to the Panthers. I talked about that already if you want to scroll back. Monty, I talked about that as well, but because you're Monty, I will say that I like it. I think James Robinson, the only questions I have about it is like, what James Robinson are we getting? Are we getting last year coming off the ACL? Or are we getting Jacksonville James Robinson? If we're getting Jacksonville James Robinson, this could be a great move. Because, I mean, he was a 1,000-yard running back who caught 49 passes. Damian Harris, I think the thing he does better than Damian, I think he's a more well-rounded player. He doesn't really have any flaws. He's not super explosive, but neither was Harris. They're both kind of grinder power backs with, but James has more receiving capabilities. He's a better pass blocker. So I think that makes it more interchangeable with Stevenson as a 1-2 punch. So I do like that. And I think he's a guy that can also, if Stevenson gets hurt, he can carry the ball 20 times. He's done it before. Just looking at his numbers, again, looking at attempts per game. So he's had a season where he carried 17 attempts per game. So I don't think Harris has ever done that. Maybe he had in 2020, maybe. But I don't know. Yeah, Harris also was an injury risk, but I think it was more of a Harris wanted to leave type deal. I'm not trying to say I wouldn't have wanted Damian Harris back. I feel like he's a solid player. But I saw some of his tweets and stuff, and I did not like that at all. So, yeah. How old is Juju? He's 26. Same age as me. Actually, let's check if he's older or younger. He is younger than me. There you go. He is 2 months younger than me. 26 years old. Mac Jones has been recruiting, bro. He's been on it. He's been on the IG. I don't think there's any chance we're getting Jerry Jeudy, Monty. I think there's a stronger chance we're getting OBJ. Okay. Anything else to talk about? I guess we could talk about some of the other kind of like depth stuff. Yeah, Kendrick Bourne is still on the team. He kind of got messed around with last year by the coaching staff. But he's still on the team. Okay, let's talk about Cole Holcomb for a sec. The Pittsburgh Steelers have found a Devin Bush replacement and a partner for Miles Jack. Cole Holcomb of the Washington Commanders is a little bit of an under-the-radar linebacker signing for 3 years. He started 48 games, believe it or not, for the Washington Commanders. He is only 26, and it's a more consistent tackler and defender than Devin Bush. That's for sure. That guy was a disaster for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Cole Holcomb, graded as the 35th best linebacker in the NFL last year, which would have graded as the best linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He also had the best coverage grade by over 10 points, according to Pro Football Focus. So Cole Holcomb is not a very well-known player, and he's a little bit of a different style and looking type of player than Pittsburgh usually goes after at this position. He's a little bit shorter. He's 6'1", and that's, I guess, similar to Devin Bush, and he's only 240. So Pittsburgh, not exactly going for those big linebackers any longer. 142 tackles last year with Washington. He has started pretty much every game while he's been healthy over the first 4 years of his career for Washington. 105 tackles in 2019. He's a solid NFL linebacker who gives them somebody that's a little bit better in coverage, a little bit smarter, a little bit better instincts and tackling ability. So I like this move for Pittsburgh. I think it's an upgrade at the linebacker 2 spot for the Steelers. Next. What do we got? We had 2 Saints signings. Sup with Zadarius Smith. I haven't heard anything yet. I don't even think he's been cut officially yet, has he? He just asked to be traded or released. Let's check out Mac Jones. Let's see what he's doing here. I'm going to see if this is... Huh. Oh, he just followed James Robinson. There you go. Look who else he's following, Monty. See that? Get this out of my face. There we go. Okay. Let's talk about these depth guys for the Saints. How you doing, Big Al? I don't think it was lag. I think it was just the camera. Yeah, it was. Scotty Miller? Why Scotty Miller? I mean, they pretty much have Scotty Miller already. Tyquan Thornton is basically Scotty Miller. Hopefully better at some point, but that's what he was last year. Okay, interesting. Let's see the Saints. Campbell. I want them to get a number 1, bro. I like Campbell, but I mean, let's be fair. Taekwon hasn't done anything yet. So, okay. The New Orleans Saints have added some much-needed interior defensive line help after getting absolutely raided by the rest of the NFL in that department. Of course, David Onyemata left to their rival. Shai Tuttle left to their rival. Both their starting defensive tackles left to the NFC South. So what did the Saints do today? They go a little bit cheaper, but they get a couple big boys for the middle of their defensive line. They signed Nathan Shepard from the New York Jets to a 3-year, $15 million deal that includes $10 million guaranteed. They also signed Kalen Saunders from the Kansas City Chiefs, 3-year deal, $14.5 million. Now, in terms of grades, both of these players graded better than Street and Roach, who were already on your roster. Played similar snap rates to Contavious Street last year for the Saints. 511 snaps for Saunders as more of a run-defending big nose tackle type for the Chiefs. And Nathan Shepard, who had 416 snaps on a loaded Jets defensive line. He graded 36th, which I like Shepard. He's just been kind of buried in a very impressive defensive line core. Shepard actually had a very strong pass rushing grade according to Pro Football Focus of 79.5, which was only worse than Christian Barmore, Jonathan Allen, DJ Reader, Quinnen Williams, Aaron Donald, Javon Hargrave, Chris Jones, and Dexter Lawrence. So those are some pretty elite names that Nathan Shepard was only worse than in the pass rushing department. So maybe a little bit of a steal from that standpoint, because like I said, the only reason Nathan Shepard is not more well known is because he's been a role player for the Jets. I mean, if you played the Jets D-line last year, you knew this. I mean, they have Quinnen Williams, they've got John Franklin Myers, they had Sheldon Rankins, they even had, they re-signed Solomon Thomas. Of course, they have Carl Lawson. They added a first-round pick last year, Jermaine Johnson. So they had a ton of talent. Michael Clemens also. So it's a really tough competitive D-line to play on, and Shepard was a nice rotation pass rushing piece for them last year. But I think he's also a pretty solid run defender too, from what I've seen. So I really like the Shepard signing. In terms of the Saunders signing, maybe a little bit too much money. 3 years, 14.5 for like a run stuffer that hasn't ever really graded fantastic. But those players have often been underrated and unheralded from Kansas City. Those run stuffers, especially when you look at a game like the Super Bowl, right? So the Chiefs are often a team that very game plan specific up front, and when they want to stop the run, they oftentimes have been able to, and it's due to guys like Kalen Saunders, who had a big role in that Super Bowl where they played extra defensive linemen and extra big beefy guys. So I think the Saints got two pretty solid players. I like Shepard more than Saunders, but at least they replaced what they had. Now, I'm not saying they're as good as what they had, probably not, especially David Onyemata, but at least they look to replace those guys and keep that defensive line as a strength for their team, because that's very important for what they do. Okay, those are two signings. How am I doing? I'm doing pretty good, bro. I am doing pretty good. I have officially caught up on, I think, every signing that I actually... Oh, no, I want to talk about two more signings. Damn it. I forgot to scroll down. Gronk, spike the like button, guys, if you haven't. Paul says... Graham says, if you're the Pats, do you go back out and go to try to get D-Hop or Odell? Yes. Yes. Dante says, Broncos, Tremont Smith. You want me to talk about Tremont Smith? Honestly, I'm not too familiar with his game. Is he a returner? Yeah, returner. Played for the Texans. That's why I'm not that familiar. Who were the Broncos returners last year? Depth defensive back. Returner. Okay. The Saints also, or the Bills signed Deontay Hardy. I mean, does anyone care about that? I don't think so. He can run fast. I'll say that much. I'm going to look up Gesicki on Twitter. What's up, Ashton? How you doing, man? I'm going to look up Gesicki and see if there's any rumors flying. Mike. So the top tweets I've seen is that Mac followed them on Twitter. And he also followed the Patriots on Twitter too. So there's that. Okay, let's get to Connor's tweet. He says, I know I'm dwelling on Orlando Brown, but he's going against some serious speed rushing and bend in the division. Ajabo, Highsmith, and Garrett. I have faith, bro. I think he's a massive upgrade, a good signing for them. I understand what you mean with like the speed and stuff that he has at times struggled with, but overall, I mean, sure, he struggled more so with that than power, but I don't know, man. I still think that's a great signing. Nathan says Mahomes restructured his deal, but it was way less than what the max restructure would have been. Do you think Kansas City has something in the cards? I do think that they want to sign a receiver. So I think they want to sign a receiver and maybe even an edge rusher. So I definitely think that they do have something in the cards. Yeah. Yeah, Monty, they're signing these mid receivers. Yeah, Ashton, you're right. Okay, let's talk about the Texans signing Sheldon Rankins. Had a huge bounce back here last year. Is Braxton Berrios a free agent? I would love him back. I don't think that's going to happen, though. Hold on a second here. Houston. Okay. Let's talk about Sheldon. The Houston Texans have signed former Saint, former Jet, Sheldon Rankins on a 1-year, $10+ million deal. Sheldon Rankins will instantly become a boost to the interior defensive line of the Houston Texans, which got ran all over last year and the last couple of years. Sheldon Rankins is going to help that immensely. I actually thought that Sheldon Rankins would sign with the 49ers. And it's interesting that he ends up signing with the Texans because, of course, DeMeco Ryans is with the Texans now. The same schemes. 6'2", 305 pounds at 28 years old. Sheldon Rankins is coming off a huge bounce back season. After a couple, not so good seasons, lesser seasons. He had 3 sacks, 15 games, 15 starts. He also had a career high 43 tackles. He does have an 8-sack performance under his belt in 2018. 7 quarterback hits. And his Pro Football Focus grade was 22nd, which would have been the best for the Texans, better than Malik Collins, and now newly signed Hassan Ridgeway, also a former 49er. Sheldon Rankins, solid all-around D-tackle. I don't think he's phenomenal in one area. I think he's good all around, and that's a steady starter on pretty much any defense in football. Sheldon Rankins would play quite a few snaps. He played over 500 in the deep rotation of the Jets. I just talked about Nathan Shepard going to the Saints. And Sheldon Rankins, a former Saint, is going to the Texans, playing about the same number of snaps. So looking at Houston and their defensive line, Malik Collins and Sheldon Rankins will be their starters. They've also got Roy Lopez and Hassan Ridgeway and anything else they do there on the interior defensive line. But the D-line isn't looking bad. They also signed Chase Winovich for the edge position. They're probably going to add a big pass rusher in the draft. But interesting. Interesting signing. I like the signing. I think Rankins is just a good D-tackle. Nothing else really to add there. Good all-around player. Is definitely going to help the run defense. And he's going to be a steady contributor as a pass rusher in a scheme that he seems to fit, in my opinion. Okay. What'd you look up? Monty. Oh, yeah, those guys signed, yeah. Foot says, why are all these people saying Mike Gesicki might go to New England? Because he followed them on Twitter, and also Mac followed him as well. Sports Today says, report, the Broncos are front runners to sign CJ Gardner-Johnson per Aaron Wilson. Eagles are also trying to re-sign him, as well as sustain CJ, CJ plus CJ would be great alongside their D-line. I mean, CJ was great for them last year, yeah. Is there any other teams? Oh, do you mean that he would be great with the Broncos? I'm kind of confused. Imagine CJ. I mean, it makes sense. The Broncos, Sean Payton, right? He used to play for the Saints. Imagine him with Justin Simmons. Oof. That would be tough. Sports Today says Gesicki would fit what Bill wants. Well, they already have Hunter Henry, so he would pretty much replace Jonnu Smith. He would be like a move tight end type, which has worked in Bill O'Brien's offense before. So it's possible that it would work. Definitely wouldn't work in the Matt Patricia scheme. But what would? What would? Connor says, from July 15th, Orlando Brown rejected its final offer with 6 years, $139 million. That included 30.25. What is that from? What team is that? What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me live. Gronk spike the like button, subscribe. What is that, the Chiefs or the Ravens, Connor? Graham says if the Pats can end up with either D-Hop or Odell, W free agency. I agree, bro. I agree. Yeah, the Patriots re-signed McMillan. Darius Slay is an Eagle. Absolutely. He is back. He is back. Okay. The last signing I have to talk about tonight, unless anything else breaks live, and you guys have some great questions, is Deshaun Elliott to the Dolphins. If any Lions fans are here, would appreciate any info you have about Deshaun Elliott. I know that you liked him, and I know that you're disappointed he left. I'm a little surprised he left, honestly. I do think there's a connection to Brandon Jones. I think they played college together, if I'm correct. Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's get that up. Any other questions, keep them coming, and I'll answer the final questions. Yeah, the Patriots punter last year, Jake Bailey got hurt. He was cut. Then they had, what the hell was his name? He was terrible. I don't even remember. I erased him from my memory. Okay. Elliott. Okay. The Miami Dolphins have added again to their secondary with a versatile safety. Deshaun Elliott, former Baltimore Raven and Detroit Lion. At 25, possibly 26 years old this year. 1-year deal. That's it. For only $1.77 million. Man, Sports Today's Detroit Lions could not even afford that. Maybe he was willing to take a discount to play with his buddy Brandon Jones once again. But he started 13 games last year for the Lions. He started 16 for the Ravens as a 23-year-old free safety in 2020. He had 1 interception last year in 13 starts and a career-high 96 tackles. He had 80 in 2020. What Deshaun Elliott is to me is a box safety who can play effective man coverage in the box and also be a good thumper in the run game. That's what he is. He is a guy that can match up with tight ends and play man coverage. And I feel it'll be interesting to see what he does with Vic Fangio. But I think that he's coming off his best season of his career. And went to Detroit, a different system from what we saw with Wink Martindale and the Ravens, and showcased, I think, his best of his career. Deshaun Elliott is another just steady, solid addition to the Miami defense. 45th grade in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. Steady across the board in pass rushing, coverage, and run defense. In his other seasons, he has been graded steady across the board. He was 28th in 2020, which was the other year where he was a primary starter. But most of his career outside of last year really was spent as like a backup, like a third safety. So I think Miami is probably going to utilize him as a complement to Brandon Jones, I would say. He might even start over Brandon Jones as strong safety. But Javon Holland's complement right there for very, very cheap. And probably the way that Miami decided to shift after they heard Jordan Poyer was going back to Buffalo. This was probably their second choice. So I like this move. I'm a little surprised that Detroit did not want to bring him back, though, given that he was good for them last year. So Deshaun Elliott, Lion, Raven, to the Dolphins. Another good addition, cheap, and a value for Miami in the secondary. Okay. So Sports Today says he pretty much played the same role he did in Baltimore because he stepped in for an injury. Okay. Good to know. I forgot that Tracy Walker got hurt. Graham says, what were the problems with the Pats special teams last year? Really killed us. Yeah, they had shitty... Bro, the special teams was ass other than Marcus Jones. Well, Nick Folk was pretty good. He's always good. But the punting was terrible. So the hidden yards were bad. And then we also had some issues with punt blocks and stuff like that. So hopefully Joe Judge fixes that. Justin says, hey, man, because Joe Judge is going to be once again special teams coach instead of quarterback coach, which never made sense in the first place. Justin, man, I'm just about to go, bro. I appreciate you being here, though. I talked about Miles Sanders and Hayden Hurst and Deshaun Williams, all the guys you signed today earlier. So make sure to check that out, man. Just scroll back. This has been a long live stream, over 2 hours. So I am pretty much done here. I hope you guys have enjoyed the live stream, man. It's been a good time. I appreciate everybody tuning in every night. I'm going to continue to do this at least until Friday. Tomorrow might be a different time, maybe a little bit earlier. So make sure that you hit that notification bell. Make sure you subscribe, and we will be back with more videos. All right. Thanks for watching. It's Mitch. Have a good night. Peace.